Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be giving you my top tips on the essential drawing materials that you will need to get started on your journey as a graphite artist. I'm going to be talking about the things you need, but also the things that you really don't need as a beginner. So let's get started. In at number 1 is pencils, but how many do you need and which ones will you use? To answer this question, we need to look at the graphite pencil scale. A lot of you may already be familiar with this, but in case you're not, let's do a quick recap. The graphite pencil scale is a scale of 24 grades or tones ranging from very dark black to a very light grey. Pencils are made of a mixture of soft graphite and a clay filler, and it's the concentration of each of these elements in a pencil that gives it its quality and determines where it fits on the scale. The higher the concentration of graphite to clay filler, the softer the pencil will be. This means more graphite is dispensed on the page as you draw, giving a nice, smooth, dark colour. These are your B pencils. The higher the number, the darker the colour. On the other side of the scale, H pencils or hard pencils are made with a higher concentration of clay filler to graphite. Because they use less graphite, the colour is more of a light grey than a black. The interesting thing to note is that although the graphite pencil scale is used by all manufacturers, there are no universal standards governing the concentrations of graphite to clay to make up each grade. Therefore, while all HB pencils will be of a similar tone, they may not be exactly the same. So if you've tried out different brands of pencils, you may notice that you tend to go for a 2B in one brand, but you may tend towards a 3B in another brand to achieve the same tone that you're looking for. So which pencils do you need? I would recommend using about 4. I use a 2H, a HB, a 3B and a 6B, and you can get a really good variation of tone by just varying the pressure that you apply to each pencil. I find the 2H pencil really good for drawing your basic outlines or doing your line drawings. You can also use the 2H pencil to put down your first layer of shading. Next, I'm putting in the mid-tones using the HB and the 3B pencils. This is when you need to start building up the layers of graphite to get some sense of depth and 3D in your drawing. I also like to use a blending stump in between layers. This helps to achieve a good variation in texture. As a beginner, you don't need to use a blending stump. You can just smudge it with your finger or use a tissue or a cotton bud. And finally, I use the 6B pencil to put in the really dark shadows. This will help to really get a good contrast in your drawing. So you can see that with just 4 pencils, we've managed to get quite a lot of variation in the tones. Next up is the eraser. There are some schools of thought that advise that you should never use an eraser when you're learning to draw. Instead, the idea is that you do your corrections on the page as you go, and your corrections form part of the process and part of the final drawing. However, if like me, you're looking for more of a photorealistic finish, then you will definitely need an eraser. The first one I'm going to show you is the vinyl eraser. This is just your normal everyday eraser, but I like to cut mine into different shaped pieces so that I can get different effects when I'm erasing. If I use a blunt edge, I can dab areas and get really subtle highlights. I can then use one of the sharp edges to create a really thin, narrow highlight, which is great for doing things like strands of hair. It's very versatile, and in my opinion, it really is the only eraser that you need as a beginner. But as you go on, there are some other erasers that you might want to try out. The first one I want to show you is the kneaded eraser or the putty rubber. This works a little bit different to the vinyl eraser in that it absorbs the graphite as you press it onto the page. You can mould it into any shape that you like, and it can also be used to gently lighter large sections of a drawing easily. It doesn't wear away like a normal eraser, it just gets darker and darker until it can't absorb any more graphite. The next one I want to show you is the stick eraser, again very popular among graphite artists. I got this one only a short time ago and I love it. It has really small eraser, which is great for getting in those fine details and small areas of highlights. So if you're looking to try out something new, I would highly recommend giving this one a go. So we've talked about the vinyl eraser, the kneaded eraser, the stick eraser, and the final one I want to talk about is the battery operated eraser. It's a little bit bulky and it feels like I don't have as much control over it as I would even working with the normal pencil. The number 3 essential drawing material that I would recommend to you as a beginner is a drawing board. Drawing on a smooth, slanted surface is so important, and a drawing board is perfect. In at number 4 on my list of essential drawing materials is paper. Now, you might be wondering, does it really matter what type of paper I use? Well, it does and it doesn't. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're a beginner and you just want to practice your line drawings, your proportions, your basic shading techniques, then any type of paper will do. However, as you move into doing more detailed tonal drawings where you're layering graphite on the page, then you'll need to look for paper that's a bit thicker and can absorb the graphite a little bit better. So a sketchbook or drawing paper is ideal for this. There are lots of different types of paper available, and you can try out all the different brands and all the different papers over time for your graphite drawing. As a beginner, I would recommend just looking for one that has a medium tooth. So tooth refers to the texture of the paper, so how rough or how smooth the paper feels, and you can tell this just by gliding your finger across the top of it. If the paper is too smooth, there won't be enough graphite absorbed by the paper to give you those really dark values that make your graphite drawing pop. On the other hand, if the texture is too rough, so it might feel grainy or even bumpy to touch, it can be really hard to get in fine lines and details, especially if you're working on a small scale. So something middle of the road is what you're looking for. The next thing to look out for is the weight of the paper. So what we're talking about here is the thickness of the paper, and again you can tell this just by feeling the paper. To give you an example of the differences, printer paper is about 75 grams per meter squared. Most drawing paper, on the other hand, is about 130 grams per meter squared. You can also get much heavier paper. This kind of paper feels almost like card, and this will be about 270 grams per meter squared. Sketchbooks and drawing paper also come in a variety of colours: white, off-white, cream, tan and grey tones. But for a beginner, I would recommend sticking with a white or off-white so that the colour of the paper is the brightest highlight for your graphite drawing. And in that way, all you're doing is you're working with your pencils to bring in your shadows, your mid-tones and your dark tones. In at number 5 is reference photos. Chances are, if you're a beginner, you're going to be practicing using reference photos. And using reference photos has become increasingly popular even among professional artists. What's important is that you choose a good quality reference photo. The first thing to watch out for is blur. If your photo is blurry, this will really impact on the quality of the drawing that you'll be able to produce. With graphite drawing, and in particular graphite portrait drawing, the most important step is to get your outline drawing accurate. If you can't clearly see the lines and the edges, then that's important information that you're missing and that you have to try then and make up. So to give yourself the best chance, you want to choose an image that is clear, sharp and in focus. The next thing is lighting. This is key for the tonal part of your drawing. So when you're working with graphite, attention to detail is key. You need to be able to see the details in the highlighted areas and in the shaded areas. In reality, even the darkest areas of a photo are going to contain subtle differences and subtle variations of tone. And in order to make your drawing look realistic, you need to be able to capture the variations of tone within those shadows. So what you're looking for is to figure out if there are areas of the photograph that are overexposed or underexposed. The first photo here I'm going to show you is overexposed, so you're losing the half tones. It's too bright, there's too much light hitting the model. The second photo here is underexposed, so you're losing the detail in the shadows. You want to get a reference photo that is clear and a good contrast of lights and shadows. And most importantly, when choosing a reference photo, pick something that you like. You're going to spend a lot of time looking at it and a lot of time drawing this reference photo, so pick something that you're drawn to. Well, that's it from me for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos coming soon.